Hey guys, today we're going to do a review on this custom LEGO TIE Avenger MOC that I made. Let's get right into this. First, we have test pilot Cassian Andor, and to get his red jacket, I used a Ninjago torso from Kai from Skybound. I think it ended up working pretty well. It also works well with these dual molded arms from The Incredibles. The face print in an ideal world would come from the U-Wing set because that looks a bit more like Diego Luna to me. But this face from Din Djarin also works, and his hair is on the BTS set, and I think that is literally perfect when he's in the TIE Avenger. And he also uses the blaster that is the now standard stock Cassian Andor blaster. And the legs, even though they're reused from a TIE pilot, they line up perfectly with the lines on the torso. Here's Bix, who has changed quite a bit since my custom minifigure showcase that I did a few weeks back. And she still uses the torso from Misako from Lego Ninjago with dark red arms, warm tin hands. But this time I gave her a wrench because a woman says that they're toolers. I used the legs from Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Obi-Wan Kenobi vs. Darth Vader set. The face from Cho Chang. I don't really like the happy expression on the other side. It doesn't even really look like Bix in my opinion. Her crying face on the other side I think looks perfect. And her hairpiece is Cara Dune's. The only thing that I really wish LEGO would do for this figure if they ever made a Bix minifigure, they should probably do something like they do with Gamora's hair and put some brown streaks at the bottom of her hair. So to begin taking a look at this set, let's firstly remove these winglets and let's just focus on the body of the set first. Mostly, I think the body turned out pretty well. I really like the things here that are more armor around the cockpit with the headlights basically at the front, and I think those were specifically something that was very early on to the build. These curved macaroni pieces were some of the first pieces that I even took out to build this MOC. And here we have a TIE Interceptor windshield. And underneath here, I used a sticker from the James Bond set. In the show, there is some gray detailing over here, so I thought the sticker fit well enough. We have a bottom part here that is mostly tiled off. You see I used some upside down construction to get these 2x4 tiles back here. Most of the bottom is pretty much tiled off, more upside down construction, and this specifically was a technique that I really liked designing. We also have this cannon here that can turn. It's supposed to be on the ship, and it was kind of hard to design without making it a bit too big, so I used this piece here. And to get the little green circles around it, I used some translucent green pieces. You could probably attach it back here, but the cannon is actually quite far forward. The struts on the side, I was originally going to go with an axle connection and then 4x4 cylinder pieces on here connecting to the axles. Yeah, they were never going to support these winglets, especially before these winglets. I can see they have 2 of these pieces here. Initially, they had like 3 of these pieces here, plus this front one that's a bit smaller. They were insanely huge. And this connection that I have now isn't the greatest, but it definitely works a lot better than the axle connection that I had before. The way that I built these little side things on the front of the struts on the side, even though it does leave a little gap from the front, it looks fairly nice. If we move to the back, you can see that I recreated the siding. And a lot of MOCs that I've seen in TIE Avenger don't have this straight siding. I ended up making the siding straight because I thought this was considerably easier to assemble. The engines I think fit fairly well here. I like the way they look because I was able to actually do 2 levels this time. I have 6 of these and 2 of these. If I could change something about this MOC, I would definitely replace these studs with 1x2 or 1x4 translucent light blue tiles. Those work a lot better. But these are the only ones that I had at my disposal because I wasn't really wanting to dismantle the Millennium Falcon for this. But the back also has this white stripe, which is something that I particularly keyed in on when I was designing this back plate. It obviously can fold down and you can technically load minifigures up it, though this is obviously very steep when the winglets are attached. Of course you're not going to be able to actually put figures here, but something else that I had to do for stability was put this middle strut in here, otherwise everything would just kind of crumble inward. If I remove this already isn't the strongest connection, but if I didn't have this, if I just pushed in, the entire thing would just crumble in on itself. I had to put that middle strut there, which means that you can't just walk into the interior straight into the cockpit. You can't do that in this model. It's definitely better than having the entire thing crumble in on itself. So let's take a look at the roof piece that's impossible to attach right now because sometimes it does that. I have this block down here which just uses ingot pieces and some of these pieces here with the edge on the front to cover up the gray piece. piece underneath. I also put this button of trans red on the front for Cassian to push. I was looking at some reference images when I was making this MOC, and there are actually some black windows underneath of this thing. I couldn't make this top plate any higher. Here there's a bit of a curve, so you can kind of pretend, you can suspend your disbelief to imagine that there's some black underneath there, because there kind of is. And in here you can just barely see a strip of black. Here's the only part where you can actually see the window. I also have a 2x6 tile in the back with a stupidly out protruding injection mold. I also have these stupidly miscolored stickers on the back. They're farther forward than the 2x6 tile. They're mostly in the middle. The detail that they add is like dead center on the middle. And I also of course added this circle tile that they use on like every TIE fighter except for the 2024 one. And they should have learned their lesson from that, because that 2024 TIE fighter looks stupid on the top. Of course this dome shape is supposed to go the entire width of this back plate, but I challenge you to think of a better way to have these black stripes have enough spacing between them and not create custom stickers or prints or whatever. And now let's talk about the interior. The back interior uses this one sticker from the ATSD Raider. You can't put the two side by side like Wilman and Bix are end of the third episode. You can definitely fit 3 figures. You can't fit a minifigure over here. They would be too high up and the thing wouldn't close. You see these black plates here. So you can fit 3 figures if I put one here, then another here, and another here. And if you bend the space-time continuum, then you can probably fit another one down here. So that's 4. To fit another one on the boarding ramp here, you probably can do that by modifying the boundaries of reality. But at that point, I don't think you'd be too much worried about fitting minifigures in this TIE Avenger MOC, would you? Speaking of fitting minifigures, I can't really show the inside of the walls. I'm just gonna talk about how I tried to add these columns because they were in the show. These grow pieces on the side. And I also added this button on the back of this plate here. I also took like these gunning things that Cassian puts his hand or his wrist into to man the gunning stuff. And if you take a look at the cockpit assembly, you can see that it just has the cockpit. I used some more pieces on the back here, as you can see. And I added the standard LEGO Star Wars printed control panel that has to be in every single set ever made, just for consistency. So let's rebuild this thing. One thing that I also liked is that I added a dark bluish gray border around the entire build here. I used some pieces with holes on the bottom here because they technically don't break anything legs. And now let's put Cassian in here. And you may have noticed that I also added a clip for his weapon at the back. I did my best so you can still see the pilot when he's sitting in the cockpit, but you can't actually like reach the cockpit unless you pulling a Tom Cruise and crawl on top of this gray area, and then you kind of fall into the seat. Now let's talk about each winglet, and I'm gonna talk about the middle of these parts here first. This is a bit more standard than the other one because, as you can see, it's just kind of a round thing, or the piece that they put in most TIE fighters. I specifically can remember the 2018 and 2021 sets having a printed piece for that, but I just took a random sticker from the ATSD Reader and I just shoved it into here because there's not really much else that we can do here. It would be so boring without the sticker. I just put a sticker here, okay? On this front part, I added these 2 sections here that kind of have greebling on them. On the TIE Interceptor, I remember that this was done with putting cheese loops on here, but I decided to use these slow pieces because I just thought they fit better with this design and they're a lot more unique. And I also copied the TIE Interceptor's design for attaching the wings, aside from the fact that the TIE Interceptor did it like this, which then the wings would get all bendy because I only have these pieces with 1 thing instead of 2. It wouldn't really work, or at least I just thought it wouldn't work, so I didn't do that. Now we can put the 2 parts back on, and you can see that I added some grow pieces and some studs here because I remember seeing a picture of the TIE Avenger that looked like it had some sort of greebling on these outer edges, so I just added that on. And as for the part here, I just added this kind of block of gray on each winglet. I added some sand blue because I thought it looked cool, and I had a lot more leftover sand blue tiles and light bluish gray tiles because, you know, it's not like it took that many to tile off this entire thing and this other entire thing and do that 8 times. Which pretty much depleted my entire tile collection in light bluish gray. And now everything's falling apart, and I also have this shield piece here. I put a green piece under here because green's my favorite color, which means that I had to put a green piece here somewhere. I hid other green pieces throughout this MOC, but I just had to put another green piece under there. And I also added these little cannons here. I added a black tip to them, like in the show. Some of them are cylinders, and some of them are cones because I was running out of cylinders. I actually like the way the cones turned out because they kind of look more like the front of a missile. Of course, you can actually shoot them out. You can just zoom, but then only half the missile shoots out. And you can protect Brasso, but Brass is not in the set, just Bix. And now we can take this other one. You can see that I added a bit of yellow. These are the ones that went at the top, so they obviously have a lot more detail. I added some of these triangular pieces. And over here, I actually added a triangular piece from the Mandalorian Brickhead set because it has some printing on it, and I think it fit well with the dark bluish gray parts that I ordered specifically to build this MOC. And some of the other pieces, like these popsicle pieces and the 1x2 jumper plates, I also ordered specifically for this MOC. And I think to definitely enhance the entire build. And these clip pieces with the bar pieces and the stud pieces to have the cannons at the front. Yeah, those are some of the last things I added, along with having this piece here with a stud on the side that I also specifically ordered to put it on the front of this instead of a normal 1x1 because it mostly covers up the gap of the black here a bit better than just normal 1x1. It also is a bit longer, so it makes the front of the thing look more complete. It just has a bit more length to it, and you could add some cheese slopes at the front to complete this look over here like it is in the show, but I ended up not really doing much of that. Also, this piece only has a sticker because I ran out of 2x4 light bluish gray tiles, and I also added this big old gap and some black pieces because that's what I saw in the show and some reference images that I pulled up for this MOC. And I tried my best to put gray here, black here, and black in the middle here, but I ended up having to raise this section up so I could attach it to the wings over here, and there you go. The only difference of the other winglets compared to this one that I have off to the side here is that this one has a cannon on the side, and I also added some light bluish gray parts over here. And if we take out the spring-loaded shooter just so I can show you better, I actually decided to use a piece that I found, and it ends up being a wedge plate that covers up some of the gaps on the edge of this piece here that has a turntable on it. It ends up covering up the edges of this piece perfectly, and I also used some headlight bricks on the side here, a 1x1 plate, and then some light bluish gray 1x1 cheese slopes just to have a smooth angle that didn't have any overhang. It was too short. It is completely flush the back here, and these front cannons, I took a bit of time to actually base the cannon specifically off the ones you see in the show to make them long enough, and I also used these pieces that are basically Technic pins, except they are 3 long with the bushing. Instead of being like in the middle of the thing, it's now on the edge, and I actually used that to attach it to this cylinder Technic part, and it ended up looking very clean. You can just attach it to the other anglets and attach it back to the ship. And as you can see, I added a little gap on the back, and I think that turned out pretty well because I used some more snap pieces that I particularly specifically ordered for this. And that's pretty much it for this MOC. Bye, guys.